brand new episode of T Watches a Scary Movie. My name is T, and of course, we're talking scary movies. I appreciate you tuning in for another brand new episode. Remember, new episodes go up every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, with the audio version available 30 minutes prior on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Want the audio version? Just go and search TWASM or T Watches a Scary Movie. You can find it on all your favorite platforms. And the video version, youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, that's youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Make sure to like this and subscribe to it as well too, so you can stay alert of all my new horror goodness coming out there as well. Find me on Letterboxd as well too. The Letterboxd where I'll be posting all my written reviews, which I've tried to do really good with the films I've seen this year so far, including the movie I'm going to be reviewing tonight, There's Something Wrong with the Children. I have a number of reviews on there, including I just got done actually reviewing the House Party reboot that just came out now, which surprisingly is better than you think it might be. And I know that's non-horror, but that's all the more reason to go find me on Letterboxd, folks. You can find my Letterboxd link in the description to this video, as well in the audio description on the podcast version of that. But tonight, I am going to be talking, as I've already mentioned, I'm going to be reviewing the movie There's Something Wrong with the Children. As well, I'm also going to be talking about episode 2 of The Last of Us and sharing some thoughts on that. And, these are going to be in-depth reviews, y'all, because, again, I feel that The Last of Us has been amazing. It's been amazing in these 2 episodes. There is no video game curse. The show is fantastic. But I also feel that this adaptation has been so one-to-one. Like, it is so identical to the video game that I feel that deep diving into reviews doesn't really do the service that it probably deserves at that point. Play the game, watch the show, obviously, but I'm not going to do 20-minute reviews or anything on these, not because they don't deserve it, but just because I feel that in this case, number one, I'm trying to avoid huge spoilers for what's going to happen in the game. But also, I just feel that ultimately it's just so close. Like other stuff that we've talked about on the show, I reviewed the Resident Evil series last year, Yellow Jackets and things like that. Dexter, that's completely different story. But this just feels like I'd be kind of undercutting it by doing that. I don't know, but whatever. Episode 2. If you recall, episode 1 ended off with Joel ultimately probably killing, but at least beating the shit out of this guard who caught himself, Ellie, and Tess leaving the QZ, and getting flashbacks, getting that PTSD from his own daughter's death 20 years prior. Basically beats the shit out of this guard as a way for him, Tess, and Ellie to escape. And in episode 2, they wisely decide to start off with another flashback, which looks to be hopefully a running theme of this show, because we got it in episode 1, kind of explaining that, hey, we do need to worry about funguses, because funguses are what's going to cause us problems down the line, with John Hannah and Christopher Heyerdahl, I think is how his name's pronounced, who some of y'all should know from Stargate Atlantis and Van Helsing and a few other things. I thought the flashback was great in episode 1, and in episode 2, they give us another flashback that happens a few days prior to everything that happened, with Joel and Tommy and Joel's daughter. And this is set in Indonesia, I believe, and it's showing one of the initial cases of an outbreak occurring. So this is not patient 0 by any means. Wouldn't make sense that it's patient 0, but we have the ability to see in a completely different area of the world, one that we're not experienced in seeing in either the games in the games at all. So this is new ground for us to cover, but we see one of the ways that this virus is breaking out at this point, and basically saying that there is no hope. There's no vaccine. There's no cure. The only thing you can do is destroy everybody that's infected with it as a way to stop it from spreading. And I think it's a very important thing that they're pointing out, given what happens by the end of this episode, because the point is supposed to be that there is no fixing this. If this virus gets out, the world is completely screwed at this point. And that takes us back to present day where Joel and Tess are trying to find out from Ellie. Why are they escorting her? Why are they taking her to this Firefly outpost when they could, literally take her anywhere else? And we find out that Ellie is supposedly immune. And again, we've known that from episode 1, but this is Joel and Tess finding out, which makes it a little bit more real. But Joel and Tess find out that Ellie is supposedly immune. And of course, there's gonna be disbelief, there's gonna be hesitancy about it. Because it's been 20 years. It's been 20 years since this outbreak has occurred and decimated the entire planet, as we now know, based on what happened in the beginning of the episode. But this is the first real bit of hope that might exist. And again, we know as viewers that this should be real hope because, again, Ellie hasn't turned. Ellie hasn't turned yet. She clearly has this bite. And so this actually shows real hope. But we also haven't seen enough of the infected yet to where we really know the scope and the scale of everything that's going on. And I don't say that as a bad thing, because obviously we're still very, very early in the season. But if you get what I'm kind of meaning, it's that usually in we're going to use zombie media because that's the closest thing we have to it, but in a zombie movie, zombie TV show, anything like that, we get to spend a little bit of time as seeing of how that zombie virus has just affected, the town, the city, the world, wherever our characters are actually at, and how they are just absolutely desperate for a cure. And in the first episode, yeah, we do get to see that, folks are living completely like in poverty at this point. The world is completely just broken down over the course of 20 years. Money has a completely different meaning than it did before. And I know the whole idea is it's like, look, if you get a vaccine, all this goes back to normal, but we haven't seen enough of how savage people out there can be and dealing with the various clickers and other infected out there. It's just hard to immediately be on, we need a cure bandwagon. And I kind of get that. And again, it sounds like I'm saying a bad thing, but I'm just saying that in the game by then, you had already played for a few hours. And the way that most of us are watching this show, episodically, I feel it just doesn't have the same impact. And that's okay. That's okay, because the show is still phenomenal. And of course, we revisit this later when we find out that Ellie herself got bit in an encounter that the three have with more infected. But not only Ellie, but Tess gets bit as well too. And to where we're really playing that parallel off because if they didn't believe Ellie before, Ellie's been bit now, nothing's happening, there's your proof. Whereas Tess' condition is already getting worse. And it brings it back around to what happened at the beginning of the episode, because Tess is very much a non-believer like Joel, to where they're living in the now. There's no hope, no purpose, and focusing on vaccines and what could cure this and what could happen here, focusing on what you can do. But now that this is a reality for Tess, she has to believe it enough for her and Joel, because she has to motivate this group of theirs to actually continue on, because we find out that the Fireflies they're hoping to bring Ellie to are all dead. And so there's maybe there's another place they can take her ultimately, but they're going to find another Firefly outpost. They're going to find Tommy and hopefully get an idea of what to do, because this gives real stakes to it. We get to see somebody that a character we've actually been familiar with at this point get infected. And so this is bringing actual stakes to everything that's going on. Now, beautiful. Everything, and I think that's the top thing people will say about this show, is that it does capture the beauty from the games. That they're in Boston this time around, and just seeing like various things around Boston, which I've only been to Boston like a couple of times, so I don't, I couldn't recognize it all that well myself. But looking at it though, it's like, man, this seems like, if not accurate, it's at least amazingly beautiful. And I think that in episode 2, we're seeing our actors slip more into these roles that they're in, especially in the case of Bella Ramsey, to where, I think I had said it talking about episode 1 that I was having some issues kind of getting on board with her as Ellie, and that's not a knock against her, because Bella Ramsey is a fantastic actress, absolutely fantastic actor. But I don't know if I was necessarily seeing Ellie in her, and this episode, oh, sunk right in there. At this point, I was literally watching a cutscene from the game, and I think that's phenomenal. And we got some awesome tense chase scenes with some clickers and affected as well, which was so good just because of the fact that it's a daytime set scene. And again, if you played The Last of Us, you know that so much of this is set during the day, which helps make it scarier. And I'm glad to see that tension is being kept up when dealing with the infected. And also it's just showing how lethal these things are, how dangerous that they are. Because in a video game, it's so easy, no matter how many times you die, that, look, if I just shoot him right in the head there as a game, I'm done, I can move on, everything's good. And seeing in this that navigating around these infected, killing them, they are not us. They are not playing these video games. They are really experiencing it, and just how absolutely terrified they all are. Even the gruff Joel, who puts out this very, very brave and strong presence, just how terrified all three of them are. I'm looking forward to the next episode, because the next episode looks to be our first major variation from the game itself, to where we're gonna get to see the backstory of smugglers Bill and Frank, who we know Bill from the game, and we get to see a little bit of info about his backstory in the game, and we're obviously going to explore that way more here in the TV show, at least in this one episode. Don't know if that means that Bill's going to be a recurring character, but at least in episode 3, we're going to get to see just a dedicated episode, looks like, on Bill and Frank's relationship. So I'm looking forward to that next week. Make sure to check it out on HBO Max if you haven't already. And that's going to take me here to my movie review tonight. I am talking There's Something Wrong with the Children. Now, horror movies, in the way that their stories can take numerous twists and turns, I feel it sometimes can make you wonder if some of your favorite movies would still be a favorite if the story took a very, very different turn than from what came out on screen. Like, what if in Scream 1 the killer was Sidney's father, as they kind of played up through the majority of the film? What if in Psycho Norman Bates' mother was actually alive and committing these murders? What if Robert Thorne was actually able to kill Damien in the Omen series? And these are very big swings, obviously, but even then, these swings are not big enough to where I feel they can wreck a movie as much as they very much would change the tone of the film. And again, I know it would wreck what's so perfect about them, but we don't know that for sure. And I feel there are movies that are out there that are very much telling us, if one thing changed, this could be much better than what it is. And I say that because it seems there was a clear point where there's something wrong with the children. It could have committed to its ultimate path without coming off just icky, just gross. And I'm trying to stay away from major spoilers, but the movie here tells about a foursome of adults, which is funny using that term considering one of the plot devices of this film, but a foursome of adults who are going to spend a weekend away in their cabin along with one of the couple's children. And after the children disappear for a little bit, they've returned, but something seems off with them. And this is a case to where, is there something actually wrong with the children, hence the name, or could this be, the misconceptions behind somebody who is clearly had mental health issues in the past? And that was a plot point that really kind of stood out as a sore thumb to me. I don't know. It felt a tad bit uncomfortable and unnecessary that the major crux of this story involves the character saying that this character saying they saw something, but what they saw is impossible. And because they have prior mental health issues, it gets questioned the entire time. And as the movie goes on, this character, seems to be becoming more and more unhinged, but they're not really becoming unhinged. They're really trying to point out, all these weird things that are happening with the children. And regardless of whether we find out, okay, is there something wrong with this character who has had mental health issues in the past? Is there something actually wrong with the children? Regardless of the way that it's done, the problem is that it's so extremely clunky, and the way they go about displaying this just seems so mean-spirited that we, in my opinion, we don't really care about which way it's ultimately going to go, because they treat this character like absolute trash. And I really do feel that that was something that could have been pulled from the movie, like the mental health background, and everything could still work, just because the movie does not play into these mental health issues this one character is having like enough for it to actually be worth putting into that story. Like, it could just, this story could have worked just as fine if the character is saying, look, like, there's something up with these kids. There's something wrong with the children, again. But there's something wrong with these kids, and why don't you all believe me? We've seen that in other movies before. It's a common plot device. It's nothing I think anybody would have gotten annoyed at seeing or hearing again at this point. But in 2023, when we know so much more about mental health than we have, any year prior before, it just seems weird for that to kind of be hammered in when it doesn't add anything, in my opinion, to the plot itself. This character is no more believable or unbelievable because they've had mental health problems in the past, and the movie doesn't really portray that well enough. Actor does a fine job with it, but the movie doesn't portray that. It doesn't follow that thread even close to well enough to where it seems justified that it's in there. And it really weighs the story down, I feel, because the problem is that we get to a pivotal twist in this film, which is, kind of what I was starting off to talk about. We get to a pivotal point in this film to where we find out what's actually going on. Is this the hallucinations? Is this, a character just losing their mind? Or is something actually fucked up with these kids? And when we find out what's really going on, the problem is that we're just telling two completely different stories, and neither one gets fleshed out well enough. The first story talks about how both of these couples are having a lot of issues in their different relationships and the different things that they're trying in order to, see what could come out of it. And this other story is like, oh, something's creepy going on. And they don't utilize the first part that's about these two couples and the problems that they have. They don't use that enough to where it can be leveraged in the second part with everything creepy that's going on. It doesn't leverage it enough at all. And the problem is because neither side seems that well balanced, they're both unbalanced. It's not scary enough, but it's also not dramatic enough to really make up for two different stories trying to be told. And I mean, the children themselves in the film do an absolute fantastic job. They swap between being mischievous, playful kids and like these evil, menacing terrors all throughout the film. And I think they do a wonderful, wonderful job to where, yeah, of course, I'd have an issue working out whether or not this is just me or whether these kids are actually causing issues. But having young actors that can do both convincingly will always stand out, no matter whether or not I think the movie's that good or whatever. And Briella Guiza and David Maddle, they kept giving me an urge to look over my shoulder while I was watching this movie. So they did really, really good in the film. The cast themselves all do a phenomenal job, but there just was something missing from it, and the fact that it just came off uncomfortable and a bit cluttered didn't sit well with me. It's also not a particularly bloody film. We don't really witness too many deaths on screen, though one character does catch a cleaver through the shoulder, so we do get some blood for sure. But I left off feeling that there had to be a different cut of this movie somewhere out there, just because of how unbalanced it is. I'm hoping that wasn't intentional and there's stuff out there that could form just a more cohesive movie, but who knows? I mean, that goes back to the writing, in my opinion, more than the directing, but we'll find out, hopefully here in the next coming months, if there's any kind of physical release that maybe there is an extended version or an alternate version of here. Movie is ultimately effective at showcasing creepy kids, but ultimately, There's something wrong with the children, doesn't commit to one particular story enough to maintain a watchable tone, and instead it comes off as unfinished and slightly unrealized.
Boy here is a big fan of Fangoria. So, if you want to check out the world's best horror magazine that's out there, get a chance to get yourself your own subscription, which I just got my first one back in 2022, and I don't regret it for a second. But if you want your own Fangoria subscription, or you like the Fangoria merchandise, then head over to the Fangoria shop and use my link if you want to save yourself some money, folks. That's an easy one to remember. Just go to shop.fangoria.com/axdew. Again, that's shop.fangoria.com/axdew, or use my specific code AXDEW at checkout. You can save 20% off your entire order, and that implies 2 subscription and one-time orders as well. You don't want to miss out, folks, because with the magnitude of horror movies we've had released in the last few years, and with what we have on the horizon, Fangoria is going to be your #1 source for all that great, juicy, bloody information in the world of horror. So again, head to shop.fangoria.com. Hey there, folks! Thanks for tuning in to T-Watch This Scary Movie. I appreciate you checking out another review or movie news, whether we're talking movies, TV shows, books, or games, whatever, it's all scary. Remember, you can check out new episodes every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the YouTube page for video. That's youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. Again, youtube.com/C/Theron Reynolds Scary Movie. And you can check out the audio version on all your favorite podcasting platforms. Just search T Watch the Scary Movie or TWASM. Don't forget, my name is T. We've been talking scary movies. Stay scared.